we bury them. And that's the reality of faith and the work of the clergy. And I appreciate all the organizations here that came today and spoke, and the tremendous work that you're doing. But we've got to understand the nature of this problem, in that abuse and domestic violence is not only a secular crisis, but it's a crisis of faith. And at the end of the day, very often I've discovered that secular agencies are not going to be able to deal with the faith issues. And you need the clergy. You need the church. You have to get them involved in the process. And very often, we live in a culture today that wants to separate out faith from all this stuff that's happening. It ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. So I want to just quickly share with you. I know you've been here a long time, and I've learned years ago when they taught me in public speaking that the mind cannot take in more than the seat can bear. So I know the seat has been bearing a lot here. So if we're going to make this really short, and I'll make my way out of here. I believe as a church, and this is why we're involved in things like this here, is that I believe that as a church, my first responsibility is not only to the spiritual well-being of the people who are members or attend this congregation here, but I believe that I must seek to make them better people. And to make them better people, I'm not only interested in their spiritual well-being, but I'm interested in their physical, their mental, their emotional, and their entire being as human beings. I need to enhance their lifestyle. I need to make sure that they're healthy, because I've learned that if somebody is not healthy physically or emotionally, they really cannot serve spiritually. If you're sick, you really can't do much, whether physically or emotionally. Domestic violence is something that is taboo. Most of us from the Caribbean world, we never speak of it because we grew up in it. When I grew up, I saw my father hitting my mother countless times. And in the culture that we lived in, it was just a normal thing. And boys grew up perpetuating the thinking that, well, this is the way we do it. All right? I remember growing up in the Caribbean, there was that famous calypso that said, remember, black up your eyes,
black up their eyes,
bruise up their knees, and then they'll love you eternally. And that was the hit of the day, and it was amazing to me that nobody ever said that this is wrong. Stop this music. Nobody. In fact, they sang it everywhere, and when they sang it, they took pride in singing it. Amazing, the culture that we came from. So let me go quickly and talk to you about some quick observations. So the domestic violence in the church, and of course, I'm speaking from my perspective, and I'm sure it will be the same in other religions. In the church, the survey says that 1 out of 4 persons in a church has experienced domestic violence. So what this means for me is that when I stand in front of my congregation tomorrow, and I'm going to speak to over 300 people here tomorrow, 1 out of 4 has experienced domestic violence, whether observe it or being affected by it. 1 of 4. That is a remarkable number. And so, but basically, what it means is that when I stand there are people seated right there in the church. 1 of 4 are going to be or have been affected by domestic violence. But here's the point. Most clergy struggle with the domestic violence issue. In fact, survey says that 92% of the clergy are ill-equipped to deal with domestic violence. They're just ill-equipped. They just don't know how to deal with it. Just don't know how to deal with it. For most pastors or religious leaders dealing with this, it's just a typical conversation, and y'all try to work it out. That's it. That's the sum. And some of you may have experienced that before. Go work it out. Or the worst thing that you can do in counseling a domestic situation of violence is to have husband and wife come together and sit in the same room and have the wife say everything that has happened, because you know what's going to happen. When they go home, he's going to beat the hell out of her, because she's not supposed to be telling in public what has happened. Right? But now the leader that does that, he is really trying to find a solution, albeit he really is not equipped to deal with it. So that's part of the problem, right? We understand that the faith-based leaders are very much instrumental, and if this is going to be helped, they are very critical. The churches, the mosques, the mandirs, and other places, they are very much going to be the people who are going to help solve this problem. And we need to get them equipped. And that's another conversation by itself, but that's a conversation that we need to have. So the challenge, and so here's the challenge. The challenge is that victims who go through an abuse crisis also go through a faith crisis, because we in religion we are preaching and we are teaching in Christianity for us the permanence of marriage. That marriage is permanent, and most people who are going to get married, they go through with that the mindset that marriage is permanent, and therefore, how do I relate to a situation where I may have to divorce or I may have to terminate this marriage? That's a crisis of faith. In some cases, it's a shame. In some religious cases, it's a shame to get a divorce. It's a shame. It's a shame to separate from your husband. So this is a faith-based crisis also. And so, as I said before, we've got to understand the role of faith in this, and we cannot, and I'm saying to all the agencies that are here, what you do is great. What you do is great, but at the end of the day, the judge is going to separate them. The judge is going to distribute the asset, but at the end of the day, nobody is going to heal. None of that is going to heal the soul. None of that is going to heal the soul. And at the end of the day, for the ladies, and one of these ladies courageous that stood and told her story here. I love stories. In fact, in the church right now, I'm preaching on stories and the power of our story and the amazing value that we bring to other people when we tell our story. And I'm so, I was privileged and honored to listen to these stories from these ladies, because your story brings amazing value to people. And these stories are just, tremendous. But the crisis of faith and all the work that we do, we've got to be able to address the faith issue. Because that's how the solution has to include everything. And secular agencies, sorry guys, I know you do great work, but you're not going to be able to help with the faith issues. We need healing for the soul. We need healing for the soul. So let me just give you a couple of quick things that I think clergy can do. Some very quick things. Number one is speak some words. And what do I mean by speak? I mean speak the right theology. Speak on abuse. I don't know if those of you who go to church, I don't know if you ever heard a pastor or an imam or a pandit or anybody speak about abuse.
Yeah.
Did they ever deliver a sermon on abuse?
No.
All right? But that needs to take place.
Yeah.
They need to talk about it. Because as I said, 1 of 4 seated there has been abused or has experienced some form of abuse. And so it needs to be talked about, but it needs to be talked about from the perspective of the right theology. Because in most cases, the theology is all mixed up, and theology very often is based on the fact in many of our religions, particularly the ones that are Eastern based, is the fact that the man is superior to the woman, and the woman must be submissive to the man, and whatever he says, she must do, and the position of the woman is that she must be barefooted in the kitchen, and that's her role. That's not good theology. That's not good theology. All right? The theology of the Bible that I know and I've studied, the theology of the Bible says a man must love his wife as himself. A man must love his wife as himself. So basically what that tells me is that I love myself. And I appreciate what the doctor was saying about understanding who you are and be true to yourself and love yourself and shave and cut your hair and do all of that stuff. So you know, but at the same time, you know, if I love myself, I must love my wife. I must love my wife the way I love myself. And so getting that theology right and being able to teach that theology is absolutely important. I speak very passionately on this, as you probably can sense, because one of the things that I go across, I speak here a lot about it, and we do a lot every Sunday. We actually have a class on the family that people can come in and at any time and take that class on the family and family issues, because I really, really believe in it. My philosophy is, as the family goes, so goes the church. That's my basic philosophy. And I speak on this, you know, across the world in many places, because the family issue is so vital. So vital. So, the number 2, listen. And if you're a religious leader, a faith-based leader, listen to abuse victims without casting judgment. And very often for most of us, listening means waiting for your turn to speak. That's not what listening is. It means just hearing what the person is saying. Get that in your soul there is hurt. Understand the hurt. And part of this is that very often we are just listening to offer a solution to somebody. Because very often those of us who are professionals, we're watching the clock. And very often we're listening to offer a solution. And very often, yes, they need a solution, but before you give them the solution, what they really want is for somebody to hear them. Thirdly, be careful. The church must be careful not to take sides with men. And that's a tough thing, I know. It's a tough thing, because the way we think is that the man is always right. And very often, it is a tendency of religious leaders to take the side of the man. And to tell the woman that she needs to listen to the man. Churches must create a safety net where people feel safe to come and talk, where they can bring their issues and they can feel that whatever is taking place here, I'm safe. This is a safe zone. And that what I say here is not going to be on Facebook, it's not going to be on Twitter. On the Sunday sermon, my name is not going to be called out or singled out in any way. But I'm safe. Provide premarital counseling. Absolutely important. Absolutely important. Before people get married, they need counseling. Believe you me, I perform a lot of weddings, And I talk to a lot of people in our church here. If you're going to get married and you come to me and say, Pastor, I'd like you to perform my ceremony, I'm going to say, wonderful, but you're going to be with me for 6 months. And we're going to go through a lot of stuff for 6 months. And if you don't want to go through it, that is fine. There's a guy down the street, or you go to 12055 Queens Boulevard, I told them, and there's a guy there, and he'll marry you very quickly. And I know you want to get on your honeymoon, by all means, get going. But if you want it to be done here, you're going to do it right. All right? You've got to have them with premarital counseling. Got to have people with premarital counseling. Because, most of us, we want to get married and we think we know it all, right? I mean, come on, you got married, right? Didn't you know it all?
Yes.
All right? And you discover that in love euphoric experience doesn't last for more than 2 years, and after 2 years, it's gone. And marriage is not walking on the beach and holding each other's hand and, looking at the sunset. It's about mortgage and crying baby at night and cleaning diapers and a lot of stuff, right? Warn about the dating signs, warn about the signs of abuse in dating. And I appreciate Aminta's story, because I hear those stories a lot. And we not only need to talk about marriage, but we need to talk about dating and the warning signs that you see in dating, because that is where it all begins. All right? And we need to talk about it. Finally, we need to know the resources that are available to help. And that's why I appreciate the Caribbean Voice and Annan for bringing together this event here today, because we've got some great resources that were presented here to us today, and we need to walk away with great resources. Each one of us, we need to know, where we can get help. And I've used Susan's agency before, where we had to rescue people. We had to rescue someone from Trinidad, and her agency helped us, where a U.S. citizen went to Trinidad, and she could not get out back from Trinidad because of this guy holding her in Trinidad, and we had to rescue her from Trinidad and get her from Trinidad and get her to America and get her to a place where he wouldn't find her. It's difficult, but resources, we need to know what resources are there, and we need to be able to make those resources. All right, thank you.